Good afternoon. Let's confirm the appearances for this afternoon.
The appearances are as before, although Mr. Awele will be joining us shortly, and Billy Soweto, they have communicated they are on their way, and I can see that Victor Kamau and Ms. Timu for the third petitioner have also not arrived. Will be holding their brief and wait for them. Ms. Munga also joined us in the morning and she is here. And Mr. Ombati for the fourth interested party.
For the respondents,
the only change I see is that Mr. Augusto is now here for the first respondent, and for the first interested party, the same treatment has also come in. And Ms. Dong will hold this time notice brief before he comes in. That's it.
so Dr. Mwenga, you can take the stand for the examination. Please remember to still on the road. So continue and proceed.
Thank you, my lady. Mr. Monley, you've been cross-examined by other friends, Bashir and Awele. We're going to ask you to clarify just a few issues based on the questions that were put to you. You confirmed the court that you registered for the interview. Was your blood sample taken for DNA?
No, it was not.
You have been questioned extensively on the difference, if at all, between a centralized and a decentralized system. Could you please explain for the benefit of the court and ourselves what that is?
I would say that a centralized system is one in which in its design, I would say that the heart of the system is actually in one place, and then in a decentralized system or a distribution system, we find that you can say that if we call it the nodes are actually not in one given place, but they're actually distributed across the different locations.
How about in terms of operation?
Operationally, a system can actually be operationally, you could say it is centralized. In most situations, systems are, if they're offering you a service, you could say that they're centralized. So, for instance, if you to think about logging into your Gmail account, for instance, that action of logging in operationally is done in a single place. So you would term that as centralized. But you can find that a number of your emails are actually stored in a system that is distributed on the back.
Now, in terms of security, data protection, as between a centralized and a decentralized system, which one, if at all, offers better security?
I would say it's easier to secure a centralized system.
Again, dealing with clinicians, that yesterday you asked to explain the difference between a probabilistic and a statistic system.
Yes.
Could you kind of again?
A probabilistic system bases its results on likelihood, whereas a deterministic system gives you a result based on certitude. So basically, you're looking at probabilistic systems giving you a likely percentage, and deterministic systems giving you certitude as either a yes or a no, or 0 or a 1.
So, likelihood, certitude.
Yes.
Now, again, yesterday there was a debate as to the difference between identity and identification. Again, could you kindly explain that?
I would say identity is, these are probably all the qualities that, or characteristics that define a given individual, and they are domiciled with the individual themselves. And identification is the process. I would also echo the words of the other witness. It's actually the process of a third party establishing whether that identity is indeed the one.
For that reason, is NIIMs a system that renders identity or identity? What does it do for?
It actually does both, and the effectiveness of the identification exercise of NIIMs depends on the accuracy of the identity that it holds. So the two actually play with each other. You cannot have an identity that is amorphous, or if you want to call it imprecise, and expect the identification process to be precise. So the identity that is offered actually assists in the process of identification.
In your area of expertise, and you did tell us yesterday that you actually offer would you expect to have this sort of information on the actual?
For purposes of security, I think good common practice is not to publish architectures of how you implement your securities or your processes. I would value is a blueprint of the place they want to break into, or probably encourage people to actually break into your system. So it's common practice to keep some of those, you could call them the blueprints of your system secret. That's part of the security process.
Now this morning, my learned friend Mr. Awele took you through your consultancy report. So please look at that report. Especially on page, my lords, I'm talking about page 14 and onwards to 17 on data architecture principles and application of the architecture principles. Now, the principles are not in themselves the architecture.
Not really. Please guide how the architecture will look. So if you have, let's say, a question, if you get to a level as to where you have to make a decision based on architectural options, it is good practice to base yourself off of a principle as to why you made one decision over the other.
And so the principles may be made public,
Yeah,
not the algorithm.
I would say that would be good. That's very nice.
So,
Yeah.
now, again, within your knowledge and based on your advice, and I heard you say this morning over and over again, I gave the advice, I don't know where it was.
Yes.
Now, within your advice, maybe it's better to put it that way. Does NIIMs offer sufficient security features to render itself against abuse?
Based on the advice I gave them, I would say yes. For the moment, yes. May I also add, just on the issue of the principles, I think it is also important to note that this document was not developed by myself inside a room. This was actually done through a workshop where we actually sat together with individuals from within government and developed these principles. So this is actually an action research. So in as much as this is a document that is, as you could say, authored by myself, the construction of the document was collaborative.
It was group work, bringing together who and who in your collection?
Quite a number of stakeholders, and this was in relation particularly to the Ministry of ICT.
Mr. Bashir asked you about your involvement in government.
Yes, it did.
You have undertaken a few pieces about consulting work with government.
Yes, I have.
You have a number,
I believe the number is 4.
and it boiled down, I think, to the exciting discussion about your IBC evidence.
Yes, sir.
Now, my question is for clarity. What was the remit? What was the purpose of your consultants work with you?
Okay, first and foremost, I was generally a consultant on matters technology. So this actually covered from issues to do with hardware or the acquisition of hardware, data and the data management, issues like results transmission. So I actually acted as you could say, an advisor on quite a number of things relating to ICT. So the birth was quite wide, I could say. And it so happened that, of course, there was a petition on it. And being that I had been involved in quite a number of their IT issues, they felt confident enough to ask me to give them advice on that as well.
Having said on that subject, you were asked whether you have written any academic or professional paper on it.
I would say at this stage, that's a little bit far-fetched, because NIIMs is not a system that has been implemented. There's actually no data around it that you can research and eventually say that it's secure, it's insecure, it's successful, it's not successful. So a question relating to writing an academic paper on a system that hasn't necessarily been operationalized to a level of data analysis, I think is not possible.
Again, staying on that subject, you were asked whether you know what's going on with the data that was collected. Do you know for sure certain on that is?
At this moment, no. I'm actually not an officer of the government, so. Okay.
Again, we have listened to, look at your affidavit, we have listened to quite a bit of debate on this question of centralized and decentralized system with reference to the. You kindly point out to the court in your affidavit where that explanation is, because you are sort of midway as you are trying to provide the information. Could you put your finger on the paragraph that explain that just for 1 second, the benefit of the court?
That would be number 19.
Paragraph 19.
Yes.
Thank you. Now, the process of duplication.
Yes.
What do you need to undertake the duplication?
Well, first and foremost, of course, you need the data to be stored in a given case, and then you need now an algorithm. The reason why you want to do the duplication is there's probably there's a possibility that some of the data that was captured is duplicated or needs to be fused.
Okay, so you need the data and you need an algorithm.
Yes.
Then you eliminate the redundancy or duplicate.
Exactly.
Now, again, for purposes of this quickly, you have been constantly asking, in fact, there was reference to you knowing that OT Morpho wrote the software for me. Are you aware of who wrote the software?
I have absolutely no idea.
Again, yesterday the issue arose as to whether, biometric identification without biographical data is probabilistic or is statistic. What is your answer to that?
My answer to that is in understanding the process of deduplication, and particularly in respect to identity, the end goal is that you actually want a very precise identity. That's the end goal, that's the output. And for you to get that output of one individual without it being duplicated by another, you start doing, if you call it, searching from within the where the data is actually. And there are actually two specific things I would say you probably want to consider when you're doing duplication. Number one is that you'd want to search on an item that gives you some level of uniqueness. And this parameter of uniqueness, if you apply it to the data, it should be able to filter out the individual. The second is the process by which that uniqueness is processed. So if the processing of, let's say, a fingerprint is probabilistic, then the results that you have is something that is probabilistic. But if you're processing, let's say, a date of birth, the result is actually going to be quite deterministic. Say that date or it's not. So the interesting bit about the duplication is that if you get yourself in a situation where you do have a unique parameter that can be processed in a deterministic way, then you can actually, to a level of certitude, make the system deterministic. And in my understanding is that names being an integration of identities, it is actually an identifier of identities. If these identities are sufficiently unique, they show that uniqueness. So you would assume that the Kenyans probably have ID numbers that are unique, and that these ID numbers can be processed to give you a yes or no answer. It is not a probability. If your ID number is 12345, then the system is queried, and the system will say yes, it's 12345, or no, it's 12345. We don't say it's a probability. It either is or it's not. And those two things can give you some level of certitude. So if you combine this in a multi-model way together with your fingerprints, you're able to actually push the system into a deterministic trap. And that gives you more accuracy. So in my understanding and the advice that I would say I therefore pushed within my clients is that in doing that, you will get a much better system. So that's one way of looking at it. The other way, of course, is by getting additional data points. And the getting of the additional data points will actually depend on whether you are able to get the answers from the first one.
In other words, a combination of both biometric and biographical gives you a superior.
Yeah, should be able to give you more certitude for the attempt.
Let's move away from that. Now, how would you, in form of, for you as an engineer, software engineer, how would you resolve the risk of privacy intrusion in multi-data
based on, I would say based on my understanding of NIIMs as an integrated system, it's a system that has several pieces of several pieces of your identification, and these pieces could be in, if we want to call them, functional data. Now, those systems do not necessarily have to be let me start again. Basically, what I'm trying to explain to you is there's technology as it is right now, such as blockchains, which is basically crypto assets, that does not necessarily allow you to link one piece of data to another. So there are ways in which technically there are actually ways in which you can secure some of this. Now, the issue of blockchain as we know it is something that the government itself has been of interest in. They actually formed a task force to study that whole question, which I think means that based on the advice that was given, it's something they wanted to look a little bit deeper into. And I would be very glad to say that Kenya actually set up a blockchain task force even before the United States. So these are things that I think we as experts in this country are abreast with. We've given that advice to government, and the indications that we're getting from government is that they're actually considering the advice that we're giving. I wouldn't want to believe otherwise. If you look at the affidavits that I gave, they're actually, based on the feasibility study, there are actually other projects we advise the government to do for purposes of saving money and purposes of adding efficiency for their operations. For instance, to consolidate then we are having conversations about data center concept. So that my belief is that they're actually listening. So when you tell, it is being repeated over and over again. It is not being done well. And this is the process of identifying a citizen. Do you mind? Sorry.
Maybe you can ask the question again, because I thought the question was on how to prevent breaches.
Yes.
Such a centralized.
Yes, zeroing.
Yes.
That's of interest. How do you resolve the risk of breaches on mass collected data, like this?
Ideally, you would set up several technical, I could call them technical implementations in terms of security. So you have firewalls, you have quite a number of, you can do DMZs, which are called demilitarized zones. So there's technical implementations you can do. The important thing is the issue of security, I think, is an issue that needs to be done continuously, because hackers as well keep evolving. So it's not necessarily that it's something you can completely and entirely do at the given moment.
Of technology, we eliminate at least substantially the risk of intrusion into data.
And I'll actually echo the words of the other witnesses. That we have a completely secure system, then you probably just don't.
Proceed on.
The other witness. The petitioner.
You remember it now?
Anand. And if digital is to remain an option for us, then we have to bear the fact that security and monitoring is something we have to do.
So again, on that issue and on a question raised by Alan, really, is it possible to design a system that is already deployed?
Yes, it is.
My last question is, my lady, it's a follow-up to a question raised this morning by Awele. And the question is it possible to redesign a system which has already been deployed like this? And what's your answer to that?
My answer is yes. Could I qualify that?
In two sentences.
The nature of technology is that we are we're actually continually moving with respect to technology, and there are new loopholes in systems and the new technologies as to how some of these things can be better done. So all that is taken into account in the dynamic nature of the technology space.
So that we establish your bona fide and authority in this issue, this subject of data protection. In the morning, you are asked whether you have interacted with data protection in your professional field. Have you?
Yes, I have implemented and I have advised them.
If you could just give us an example.
I would say very commonly one piece of data that suffers a lot of intrusion is financial data. So particularly if you're implementing anything on the internet, it is heavily advised for you to use some given standards on encryption. And that is an example of the secure sockets that we have discussed about.
Again, yes, we have had you say continuously that you really don't have you didn't feel the intent, but within your advice to the government, what you say there, would you say that the means in terms of the data?
Based on the advice, based on the advice that I've given them, the implementation of such security advice gives you a fairly good security on the system.
Now, you made several recommendations on how this system to be built, which is. Are you aware of these recommendations?
I do not have reason not to believe that they were not implemented. Based on the few examples that I've given, I can actually very well tell that the government seriously takes into account recommendations given by the experts based on task forces that they set up and projects that they end up proceeding on.
Out of the question, let me ask you a question. As a consultant having an advisory role, do you have an obligation to ensure that your recommendations are in?
I would say no. Usually, a period of engagement is bound by a contract and a contractual period and certain deliverables. And when that contractual period and the deliverables have been handed over, then my engagement ends.
A minor detail perhaps is of some significance about the form. You are shown a form, the form that was utilized in the collection of data. Were you involved in the development of that form?
Not at all.
Do you by any chance know the considerations that were taken in developing that form?
No.
As an expert, are you satisfied that the NIIMs project has sufficient safeguards for the data that is being collected?
My answer to that is yes. The advice that I've provided to the government is advice that I feel is the best in terms of securing such systems. And if I believe that they follow that advice, then that system will be secure.
Make this event, I will donate some of my time to my senior level. You are very important. Very well. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Brian. A few questions for you in re-examination. And firstly, let us be very clear about your mandate in the whole sector. This will be repetitive, but I think it's very important. You said it was purely advisory at the initial stages?
Yes.
Therefore, issues to do with design, implementation, architecture, security of the actual system, and so on, were they part of your deliverables?
As advice, yes.
But in terms of implementation?
Implementation is a decision of the client.
Thank you. then lots of issues were taken about involvement with the government. Yes. Contracts you have done, and you said there were only 4.
Yes.
Now, is there anything wrong in your view with being paid for professional services rendered to government?
My answer to that is no. Well, I could proceed to say that if you've studied and if you do your work well and you compete for this contract and you get this contract,
yes,
and you provide good quality work,
yes,
work that gets global awards and recognition as well, I think it's fair. It's actually not your fault.
Yes.
That you try as hard as you can.
You could serve any client to take the services and pay for them, right?
Yes.
But if the petitioners here, for instance, came to you, probably have acted for them, correct?
Yes.
In that context, are you financially beholden to the government for any reason as you justify there? There's a very important distinction you attempted to make, but you were interrupted. The distinction between the administrator of a system and the designer or builder of that system.
Yes.
What is the fine distinction?
I would call it it's actually an owner, if you want to call it an artisan relationship. So in this particular case, an administrator of the system, in my understanding, is the person who owns and runs the system.
Yes.
And the designer of the system, therefore, is the person who puts the system together for purposes of actually delivering it to the owner for execution.
Yes.
And in those respects, I think it's something fairly common. It happens even in the judiciary that you're probably if you call it, you're the administrator of your laptop, but the laptop was designed by experts, taking in all the knowledge that the experts had to provide this tool so that you can help you execute your work. So there's that distinction.
Now, specific to NIIMs, we've seen that one of my clients here, the PS Interior, is the administrator of NIIMs. Would his role be quite separate from whoever designed or built the system?
You could say at the level of design, he can give actually, what do you call it, his needs.
Yes.
In terms of, I need the system to do this, I need the system to do this. So as the owner, or the administrator.
Yes. But the eventual building, designing is everything
Will be done by the.
Yes. Another distinction you try to draw, you were stopped. Is that although at the time there's no data protection,
Yes.
Well, describe that.
My basis for actually saying that is when I was doing the project, for the government-wide enterprise architecture. It was a government business process. And this identification process in various government organizations took many different disjointed forms. So my recommendation was that consideration needs to be made to actually consolidate this identification of people. And I don't think it's actually a genius idea.
Yes.
I think it's something that the government might have probably considered for quite a long time. But based on the enterprise architecture, it reduced those benefits of actually having to do that. and showed that it's actually technically a good idea
Yes.
to reinforce that thinking as well.
Okay. When it came to the argument about costs and benefits, you were pressed as to whether you get the numbers to give. You remember that?
Yes.
Now the question is, must these benefits and costs be in numbers form?
Not necessarily. There are benefits that could even be social. Some could even, they're not necessarily economic. The benefits that are probably political. There are quite a number of different facets of benefits. And if I can probably just, with your permission, just mention just a few of the benefits. And we can use and try and place numbers. You have certain problems within the government, for instance, the and identification. If you have a single source of truth, you will be able to a lot of government organizations you have your IDs, that is a one. So if you tell yourself that you don't have to do 5, 6, 10 different cards, do one card. I don't have to put numbers in front of you to show you that that is actually an economic benefit. If I tell you that we do not have to do voter registration, if we are able to create a master register, a master population register, simply because that becomes a single source of truth. So
even for voting purposes?
Exactly. If it is done well,
Yes.
if it is actually done well, and it gives you that accuracy as the single source of truth, you wouldn't necessarily have to go and register individuals again. So the implementation of it has quite a lot of savings.
Yes.
To incredible savings to the government, and in general, that is the exercise of enterprise.
Yes. Thank you. The data capture form, you were shown that this morning. Remember that, Mr. Ray?
Yes,
and you agreed with him that, in fact, all that was being captured there were the fingerprint and biometrics?
Yes, there was also the photo.
Yes.
There's a space for a photo.
Yes. Was DNA being captured?
No.
What about GPS coordinates?
And in there.
You know?
No.
Okay. Then you are referred to the amendment which is contained in the petition of the second petitioner. You remember you are taken to page 61 that has the amendment and defines biometric. Okay. Big bold bottom pagination 61. You have it. Petition of the second petition. Let me donate my copy in the interest of time. $61. You are referred to that definition of biometric. In a short one, just read it.
Biometric means unique identifiers or attributes including fingerprints, hand geometry, earlobe geometry, retina and iris patterns, voice waves, and the obsolete loop the
DNA.
the DNA in digital form.
I underline those three words. In digital form. Is that an important part of that definition? That it is in digital form as opposed to another form?
Yes.
Explain, instead of being manually maintained records.
If it is in digital form, it becomes a lot easier to process. There are easier things that machines do compared to human beings.
Yes.
And that includes, for instance, matching, sorting, etc. And they do that extremely well and extremely quickly.
Yes. Good. A lot of your examination centered on your report to them. Please turn to me, pages 4 to 23. Good?
Yes.
Attach your affidavit, pages 4 to 23. Now tell us, was this report rendered specifically for NIIMs? Is it a NIIMs report?
No.
Thank you. In paragraph 5 of your affidavit, you actually give the background to this report. Go to it.
Yes.
What do you say? Just return.
That subsequently I was part of a team that carried out a feasibility study of the government enterprise architecture and recommended various flagship projects, including the Unified Unique Digital Identity Project, which was authored in a report titled the Digital Government Transformation Project. This report proposed various integration solutions and presented the technical and economic feasibility of various solutions.
You then annex it. It is 4 to 29. So really, it was a feasibility study that was being undertaken. And you said not just by yourself, but a group of persons. Now, if you look at the bottom of each page of your report, page 5 to 24, every page at the bottom, there is a phrase there that says, draft report for discussion only. You see that?
Yes.
And it appears everywhere. And as Mr. correctly pointed out, in fact, at some pages, you have draft stamped across pages.
Yes.
Like page 8, page 12, and so on.
Yes.
Now tell us, this is a draft for discussion. Was it ever discussed?
Yes, of course.
It was discussed. Do you know whether it was ever adopted formally by the government?
I submitted the report to my client.
And off you went. Do you know what they did with it?
No. I would assume that that they read it and took the advice and the recommendations of the
But things about formal adoption and so on, incorporation in policy and so on. Thank you. You asked about the legislative framework of NIIMs. Are you in a position to comment on that? Then you are asked about sensitive personal data. Okay?
Yes.
Can you confirm whether that sensitive personal data was in possession of government even before NIIMs?
Yes, it was.
And in fact, the buzzword, the main theme about NIIMs seems to be digitization of what government already had.
Exactly.
You are taken to the EU regulations.
Yes.
Which countries would be governed by these regulations?
Those would be countries that are members of the EU.
Yes.
I give you some examples. and it's becoming a geography. So we're looking at maybe Germany, France, UK is trying to get out. Portugal, Spain, yeah, Finland, Norway, Belgium.
Do you think the unique circumstances prevailing in Kenya would be relevant in formulating our own rules, like these EU rules?
Yes. The way I would look at it is the formulation of a lot of, well, this is not probably a rules answer, but the systems always the systems always follow the context. That's what I would say.
In fact, you see, is that the context is king.
Exactly.
In all these questions, look at the context.
Yeah, that is why we cannot necessarily equate one for one between systems in different countries.
Yes.
Demographics are different, people are different.
Yes.
Issues about infrastructure, budgets are different. So even to infer that we should do a cut and paste job is actually a fairly bad piece of advice. We need to develop a system customized to our needs,
To our own needs.
and to our own. Exactly.
Now, it was put to you that there are certain deficiencies in data security in Kenya, including that there is lack of disclosure of technical details of names. You remember that?
Yes.
A lack of publicized standards to do with names.
Yes.
Now, question is, if these deficiencies exist, have they just come about with the introduction of names, or they were always there?
This the
If
process
they exist at all, have they just come since 2018 when the Act was amended?
not at all.
Going back to the data capture form, the question that was posed to you is the sufficiency or otherwise of what is being collected by that form. Can you competently speak to that? Whether there is sufficient data or too much data being collected?
No.
Thank you. Would you agree that is really in the sole discretion of government?
Yes.
And do you have the authority to speak for government?
No.
And what's more, can you contradict the data points specified specifically in the law, in the amendment that you saw? And in winding up, just a few questions arising from the cross-examination of Mr. Anand. Well, firstly, he seemed to imply that there is some competence deficit as far as our local experts are concerned. Do you agree with that?
I hesitate to object to my learned opinion, but that was not, we didn't ask any question in that, and I remember. And I also noticed my learned opinion has proceeded to cross-examine the witness through leading question after leading question. I don't know whether that is precisely the best way to proceed. But with all due respect.
Can I respond?
Yes.
As far as Anand, these questions are concerned, do you remember that we did object? He was introducing brand new questions in the examination, and the court directed that we be at liberty in our examination of our experts to raise those issues in our experts. And that is exactly what's happening.
Yes, but again, the court was also very clear that there must be far with precision to those areas of new evidence. Mr. Bashir is saying the issue of local talent was actually raised by yourself. Mr. Regeru,
Yes.
in the cross-examination of Mr. Anand. So if we are referring to the new evidence, I know the court gave you a leeway to do so, but please specifically refer to that new evidence.
I will rephrase the question. Do you believe?
And the point about the leading questions.
Yeah, of course, this is. Do you believe, Mr. Ogoinda, that there is sufficient competence in this country as far as the design of the architecture related to and such complex systems that comes up?
Yes, I do.
Do you believe that you and your colleagues, experts in systems and so on, are at the very cutting edge of technology?
Yes, I do. And if I may add at this point, we actually just did a census the other day. And the census was actually conducted through a local company.
Oh, really?
Yes, they're the ones who developed the system. Okay.
Then Mr. Anand, in his re-examination, highlighted what's he called, 5 concerns that he has with NIIMs. Okay? So in fairness to the court and everybody else, I would like your comments on some of these concerns. The first of which was purpose-free architecture, data to be used for specific purpose, and he went on and on. What is your comment on that?
I believe that that is a big topic.
Yes.
The purpose of the system is, and the objective of the system is fairly clear, to be a single source of truth for identification. And if you start from that end, so it needs to be fit for purpose, and you understand our context, then you will create an architecture for purposes of achieving that. So whichever architecture you're referring to, I have no idea.
Okay. His second concern was about system design, and he took the view that the data capture form asks for very detailed information, not necessary. Yes, that not all that is sought in the data capture form should be requested by the government. What do you think?
I think the government has sufficient reason to ask for the data. It did for purposes of, for instance, deduplication. The government actually stands a better chance at achieving its objective of, if you want to call it a single source of truth, by having more points to verify.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would there be anything wrong with the data capture form that captures other citizen details apart from just the identification details? For instance, land holdings and things like this?
That would be something that would be, that really depends on the design of the form itself,
Yes.
the form themselves, and for whichever reason they wish to collect that information.
Yes. Number 3, he talks about exclusion by design. Yeah, denial of services for want of human number and so on. What would you say then?
I think he really based himself on a lot of his affidavit was based on biometrics and the fact that if you were to do deduplication based on biometrics, then you suffer from that particular problem. I think the NIIMS system, at least from the experience that I had in getting the human number, you don't necessarily get excluded if you don't have
Yes.
so this system has failovers, so they will take a photo of you or something like that. I think that it has been walked into the system with this was and either they can explain that amongst themselves in the purview in which the law offers them for execution.
Thank you. Finally, he talked about breaches and frauds, and he said this will depend on whether the design is modern or archaic, and he described ours as archaic. What is your comment on this?
The reality of breaches and fraud is evident as a matter of security. I would say that is something that any and every individual creating a system the world over is beholden to. And typically what you do is based on your expertise, you actually try and create policies and systems to keep the system secure. As we said, a totally secure system is beautiful. As to whether our design is a cake or not, I actually think that based on the advice given to government and my belief that, by them going into issues like blockchain and looking at things like machine learning and artificial intelligence, we might probably end up having an extremely good identity system. And I personally think, if I may respond to my own expertise, that we do have good talents to be trained leaders on this issue. And Kenya itself as a country has also just submitted a blueprint on digital transformation for Africa. And I think we should take our recognize. Even we as experts who are giving this, who are actually giving this advice, I want to stand up and be counted. And the world is moving into, it's actually moving into, we're moving into a digital revolution. And if we're actually not involved in this so-called digital revolution, we might actually miss out in a fairly big way. So we just have to embrace the realities as they are, and think more.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you very much. Ladies, unless you have any questions for this witness,
Just comes clarification from something that I wrote yesterday in the cross-examination by Mr. Shea. I think you referred to your paragraph 15, where you spoke about a decentralized and centralized system. And you also referred to the range of conditions agreement, I think it was paragraph 51, where he spoke about the system being centralized. And I think you were trying to explain what the distinction was. And I didn't understand, and I would like to understand today whether there's a distinction between the two. I don't know whether you get my question.
Yes, I do. I would say in reference to current education, Dr. Peter, I would say that his perspective of the centralization of the system is in its operation. That is why it's called a single source of truth. you go to one place and one place only. The actual technical implementation of that system on the back end can actually take any form depending on fitness of purpose as well as context.
Okay, Dr. Wen, thank you very much for your evidence. We release you, and just like I promised Mr. Nan yesterday, I hope we will not call you again. Okay? I know you've had enough of the session. So we can yes. Is there any problem? Facing any difficulty? Is there any problem or difficulty with your experience? Before we proceed.
Thank you. The witness is there from statement in Tony.
Yes.
And my ladies, my lord, he is testifying on an abstract. You have it in your hands. The David dated 14, May 2019. Will you please tell the court your full name?
Thank you. My full name is Edward Mushemi Wambugu.
Edward Mushemi Wambugu. Are you holding your affidavit?
Yes, I have it.
Your educational qualifications are set out in an annexure to your affidavit on page 100 and page 1 to 3. Is that correct?
That is correct.
But briefly, just in a synopsis, will you tell the court your academic qualifications starting with the most recent?
Academic?
Yes.
Yes. So I have a master's certificate from the University of California at Berkeley, focusing on project management. My undergrad was in management information systems out of the School of Commerce at the University of Manitoba.
And what, again, starting with the most recent, what have been your track record of professional engagement?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay. Give us your professional history.
Oh, okay. So right now I run a small company called Serious Consult. I consult on business transformations and technology transformations. Yes.
So, yes, yes.
Fast or slow?
So, yes,
Okay. So I run a small company called Serious Consult, and it focuses on business transformations, primarily focused on technology implementations. I work with governments and regional players, as well as donor agencies and small businesses. Before that, I was a partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers out of Nairobi, and my main area of focus was technology. So I looked at the technology practice, and then I also managed the county county performance management as well, so county initiatives for the fund. Before that, I was a director at Deloitte Consulting here in Nairobi, and I focused on technology implementations and technology consulting as well. Prior to that, I worked at IBM Global Services as a technology architect, and I was there for 10 years. And before that, I was in Canada, and I worked also in technology, supporting universities there in implementations of technological systems for education.
Now, coming home with respect to the matter at hand in court today, you were requested to swear an affidavit by the Minister of ICT.
That is correct.
What has been your engagement with the Minister of ICT?
So when I was at Deloitte, as well as when I was in Pricewaterhouse, I engaged with the Ministry of ICT as well as the government of Kenya in initiatives that they had to transform the public sector.
Yes. In the year 2017, you authored a report, a SWOT analysis report.
Correct. This was after I had left Pricewaterhouse and set up my own company. I was recruited by UNICEF as an individual consultant to actually do a SWOT analysis of all the registration systems in the country and give my thoughts with regards to what it would take to consolidate data.
Again, in just 2 sentences in that report, what did you discover as the weaknesses?
Some big weaknesses were the siloed nature in which data is collected and consolidated. There's also a lot of opportunity for data to be corrupted because of duplication within the different systems.
Yes. So I think that sorry. I think we're getting into evidence as supposed to
my ladies, my lord, I'm trying to contextualize it, then I'll put it in a second. That is my last question. You don't mind.
Maybe we can just focus on his experience.
Yes.
Not on the summary form, on the findings of the work.
Thank you, my lady. You authored a report, you gave it to government.
That is correct.
Now we are here on the NIIMs project. You are aware of the NIIMs project?
Yes, I've heard about it.
Did your report in any way have anything to do with it? Or does NIIMs have anything to do with the report?
The findings from my report, I would think that were used as part of some of the foundation work that was used for this.
So, finally, formally, the affidavit you are holding was sworn on the 14th, and you clarify that and check 14th of May. The page where you sign. Go to the page where you sign.
14th of May, 2019.
And you adopt that affidavit as your full evidence in this matter.
That is correct. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So for cross-examination, Mr. Whiteford.
Just an administrative thing before I start. I think our documents got confused with what is a document like this, the big document, Jerome exchange affidavit with agent initial, because we need to share it with Mr. Wonder. I think the document got confused. So
You need it right away, Mr.
I don't need to try to avoid. I just want to make sure that so, Mr. Shami, I'll be asking you a few questions on behalf of the petitioners. And my name is Walter.
Nice to meet you.
I'm just looking at your the summary of your CV or your affidavits actually. Paragraph 5 and paragraph 6. And it's very straightforward. You say you are Chairman Presidential Digital Talent Program. You're actually the founding chairman.
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that PDTP is a government agency under the ICT authority, Ministry of Information and Communication Technology? Would it be fair to say it is an agency, right or wrong?
I'm not sure it's an agency.
Is it under the Ministry of Information and Technology?
Yes, its functions are under the Ministry of Information and Communication.
So whether you call it an agency, you call it a department, you call it an office, it is an organ in government, right?
Actually, it's an initiative that was founded by the ICT.
Is it an organ in government or is it a private entity? Is it an organ in government, yes or no?
I can't say yes or no because I need to explain it.
No, you will explain it later. So you can say then you don't know.
And
That's the other option. You don't know. Does PDTP interact with Ministry of Information, Communications and Technology?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
No.
No.
Have you had anything as PDTP with Ministry of Information, Communications and Technology?
So the genesis of PDTP
Have you had any dealings with Ministry of Information, Communications and Technology? Yes or no?
As who?
PDTP.
PDTP is an initiative under the Ministry of ICT.
Mr. Michelle, have you had any dealing as PDTP with the Ministry of Information, Communications and Technology?
PDTP is housed under the Ministry of ICT.
Mr. Michelle, are you going to answer my question?
I am answering your question, sir.
Are you going to answer my question, yes or no?
I am answering your question.
So I just
Maybe so that we can move forward. Mr. Mushem,
Right.
this is the cross-examination stage. So what you're required to do during cross-examination is to answer the question that is posed to you. If you don't understand the question, say so that it can be rephrased for you.
Yes.
That you need to answer it, not to get into arguments or explanations if they are not asked for.
Yes.
There will be a stage during the examination when your lawyer will then clarify any issues that arise during this stage. So answer the question so that we can move.
Okay, thank you, Abachi. Please ask the question.
You are awarded Moran Order of the Bandit here in 2024,
That is correct.
and that was by the Kenyan government and specifically President Uhuru Kenyatta, right?
That's correct.
You did not interview to get the MBS designation, did you?
No,
You have had associations with Capital Markets Authority, right?
Right.
And as far as I understand, Capital Markets Authority is a parasite, correct?
Correct.
You are currently a board member of Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, right?
Right.
When is your term over?
2 years from now,
2 years from now. And who appointed that position?
the Minister of
The minister specifically or the ministry?
I would assume it would be the ministry.
Did you interview to become a board member of KBC?
No.
You didn't interview to become chairman of PETP, did you? Yes or no?
Yes, I did, but not a formal interview.
So, as a board member of Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, and also working with PETP, you are a public officer.
No,
Right.
right. Wrong.
And do you understand the law as to who is a public officer?
Maybe help me understand.
No, I'm just asking you a question. Do you understand the law? You can say yes or no.
No.
You don't. You've also consulted for government, right?
Yes, I have.
Are you consulting for government now?
No.
When's the last time you consulted?
And I wrote that document.
When you wrote the SWOT analysis.
Correct.
You worked as a consultant for government of Kenya to prepare the SWOT report, right?
Actually, I was seconded to the UNICEF by the government.
So the selection to be the head belief, because I understand what the belief was from the government, UNICEF, correct?
Correct.
And maybe that's actually a good place to talk about something related to SWOT. And SWOT is the strength and weakness document found in Jerome Chang's affidavit. The affidavit is 126th of February, from page 1 to 98.
Is the document you are looking
Yes,
for?
that's the one I was looking for. At some point I may, I'm not sure. Quite.
Okay. Which page of the
At this point, I'm not referring to a specific page. I just needed for the witness. Would you say that your only connection with NIIMs is through the SWOT?
Correct.
You would also say, or you would agree that the SWOT report was prepared in December of 2017. Is that correct? You can go to page 1 of the attachment. Page 1, it's, yeah, 1. That's my one. It has a date
It says December 27.
So that's when the document was released. That was way before the implementation of or the establishment of NIIMs, correct?
At least I think so, yes.
So it's fair to say the last active interaction with NIIMs was December, or anything relating to NIIMs was December 2017. Is that right?
I didn't register with it, but that was the last interaction with us.
Okay, so you've registered already. You've registered for Huduma number.
Yes, I have.
So that's what you meant, you did register. When you say you did register.
I'm a bit
Okay,
confused.
so the last time, you agreed earlier that your knowledge or your relationship with NIIMs is relates only to the SWOT framework, right?
Correct.
You have not obviously then conducted any study relating to NIIMs, correct?
Right. Other than this,
I'm talking about NIIMs after it was established by law. You've not conducted any study.
no.
And obviously you do not claim to be involved in the implementation of NIIMs, correct?
Correct.
You've never helped a government set up a NIIMs type of architecture, have you?
No.
But you understand a few things about NIIMs, and that's why you asked to be a witness, and I see quite a bit in your testimony, correct? You understand, for example, NIIMs relies on a system of authentication so that it's able to establish the real identity of the person who says or who is seeking to be identified, correct?
Please ask the question again.
NIIMs relies on a system of authentication to identify the individual.
I don't
Yes
know.
or no?
I don't know.
You don't know. So you cannot comment on whether if you need government service from NIIMs, you need to go to a point to be authenticated. You're not able to comment on it.
I can't comment on it.
You're not also able to comment on any aspect of centralization or decentralization.
I can.
You can. Which can you comment on? Centralization or decentralization?
In a general form.
Can you comment on aspects of whether NIIMs is centralized or decentralized? Can you?
As far as
Yes or no? Are you able to comment? I'll come to the next question.
okay, yes.
You can comment on whether NIIMs is centralized or decentralized, right? And in that respect, would you say NIIMs is centralized or decentralized?
To my knowledge, NIIMs is central.
And that knowledge comes from the SWOT report.
Comes from recommendations from my report.
You are familiar with the concept of metadata, right?
Yes.
Just in terms of a brief definition, would you agree that metadata is data about data? Would you agree that metadata is data about data? Would that be a fair?
I'd have to check the true definition. Allow me to do that.
Okay. Would you agree that metadata has the same concept as logs?
Mm-hmm.
You do agree?
Mm-hmm.
You also would agree that for a centralized system like NIIMs that you can comment on to work, when you seek services, you will leave a trail of logs. Is that correct?
I don't know.
You don't know.
Because I don't know how to.
Okay, so maybe then let's discuss a bit about the SWOT. And I want you to go to Jerome Oche's affidavit. And particularly
Is it table?
paragraph, the affidavit, not the document. Are you there?
57?
Yes. Are you there? Can you read the paragraph, the first paragraph on that story?
That's 5D.
Yes, fine.
In Estonia, birth registration is free, but it must be done within the first month. The process of registration takes 7 days to complete. At birth, each child gets a personal identification code, PIC, an 11-digit code that remains with the child for the rest of his or her entire life.
So my understanding is that from that paragraph is that Estonia tries to capture to the extent possible the registration of children at birth and give them a unique identifier.
Correct.
And that unique identifier stays with them until death.
Right.
I want you to go to your SWOT report, specifically page 14.
Page 14. Where it says project objective.
Yes.
Okay.
You see the paragraph that starts with the name, the birth register.
Yes, the birth register.
So the birth register is the foundational record upon which the unique identifier for children will be generated. Would you confirm that that is your opinion? Or that remains your opinion today because you wrote that report, right?
Yeah.
Would you also agree that the objective of preparing this report is contained in the next paragraph that starts with the word therefore, and specifically the last line that starts with the comprehensive? Could you read that?
The comprehensive report will support the conceptualization and way forward for introducing a unique identifier for children in Kenya.
Would you read the last sentence of the last paragraph?
This unique identifier system is of high priority for both government of Kenya and UNICEF in achieving their strategic objectives.
Would you agree that what you had in mind in terms of what is discussed here is sort of similar to what we found in paragraph 57 of Jerome Ochieng's report about the story of a unique identifier that stays with you until death? Would you say that? Yeah. And so you would agree that an essential, if not the greatest objective of this report was to discuss the concept of universal birth registration, correct? Universal in this sense meaning trying to capture all children or registration of children at birth, right?
One of
it wasn't an objective. Would you agree that if you captured registration of all children at birth and assigned them a unique identifier, that would be a very good mode of identification? The government has not implemented the aspect of unique identifier, correct? For the children, registration. As you know,
surely we have through the birth certificate.
Are they giving a unique number at the point of birth registration?
If you register for a birth certificate, you do get a unique number with the birth certificate. And
that is supposed to work the same way the unique identifier in Estonia works?
Conceptually, it was supposed to work like that.
The beauty of doing a unique identifier at birth is you're able to pick the information when it's mostly credible, right?
I don't understand the question.
At the point of birth, you are able to easily identify a child, correct?
Yes.
And so, in giving that child a unique identifier, then what you're saying is you have a credibly identified the child, correct?
Contextually, yes.
You would also agree that if we had a working unique identifier from birth for everybody, which was universal, then the state would be able to determine when a person turns 18, correct?
Correct.
So, for example, it would be able to determine if somebody is qualified for elections, right? Because people qualify at 18.
I wouldn't know, because I'm sure there are other factors that are related to that. So I can comment on that.
Let me just find out a bit. If, for example, we had registration at birth, and part of the information recorded is the child's citizenship, that would be part of the recommendation you would have, right?
Maybe rephrase it, please.
Is it reasonable to expect at the point of birth that citizenship of the child should be identified? Is it reasonable?
It would be reasonable.
Let's go to your affidavit. Paragraph 15. I want you to read that paragraph 15.
Thank you. Is this on page 5?
Yes, it is on page 5. It's the last paragraph.
The one that starts with in any event.
Yes.
In any event, distortion of all fingerprints during an individual's lifetime on account of aging, mutation of participation in manual labor is a rare occurrence. In this regard, I observe as follows. Read the part.
So, it's your statement that it's a rare occurrence. You stand by that.
Correct.
You also state at A, just to assist, that it is highly unlikely that one would come into contact with mutation using radioactive materials in their lifetime to distort the fingerprints, correct? That's your statement.
Yes.
You would agree that it's possible, your statement still leaves the possibility that that could happen, though highly unlikely, correct? You would also agree that real occurrence doesn't mean that nothing occurs at all. So there is a possibility that it could happen, correct? In the next page, you also say that manual labor is unlikely to cause distortion of all fingerprints. Again, you're using the word unlikely, so it's possible, right? So, would it be fair to say that if you're relying on fingerprints, it's possible that there are people who will not be able to produce fingerprints based on the statements you've made there? Yes or no? You say it's possible and highly unlikely, or unlikely and manual labor. So there are people who may not be able to record fingerprints or dependable fingerprints, correct?
If you've lost your limbs, yes.
No, I'm not talking about, because you're not discussing losing of limbs here. We're talking lead paragraph, subparagraph B.
See, subparagraph B says manual labor is unlikely to cause distortion of all fingerprints of an individual dominant hand.
And then read paragraph, subparagraph A.
Paragraph A says it is highly unlikely that one will come into contact with mutation-induced radioactive materials in their life.
And my question is, there is a possibility that one may not be able to provide fingerprints, right? From your statement. Is that a fair assessment? You can say yes or no.
Yes, you will be able to provide.
Yes, you will. Okay. How did you come to the conclusion in paragraph 15? Just to assist. In your affidavit, you've not provided any rationale how you arrive at these conclusions, correct? You've not also attached any document or study that supports your theory, correct?
No, I have not attached.
And certainly you've not conducted any study on fingerprints.
Myself?
Social, yes. You're not an expert on fingerprints or fingerprinting, correct? You said you registered the Huduma number.
Yes, I did.
And I believe you're a Kenyan, right?
Last I checked, I was.
What document did you use of native languages of Africa? Are you able to go to page page 108 of Jerome.
Which one?
Yes. Jerome 24. And while you're looking at that, if I asked you whether you're Kenyan, you say you're Kenyan, how would you prove to me of this work if I was to ask you to do it now?
Right now,
Yes.
I have my identity card.
If I gave you more time, what other document do you think you would produce?
Birth certificate and a passport.
Birth certificate and a passport.
Right.
Are you aware that that birth certificates actually state they are not proof of citizenship? Are you aware of that? You can say yes or no. You don't. You're not aware. At page 108, that's the data capture form. That's the data capture form.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes. 108 and 109.
108 and 109. This is the form the government was using to collect information on the human number, right? Let me just ask you, just a hypothetical. In your understanding, or maybe let me be fair first.
Thank you.
Yes, let me be fair. I don't want to presuppose that you know something that you don't. Do you know how NIIMs will work to be able to determine identity in relation to the data that has been collected?
No, I do
You
not.
don't. Okay. It's not. But are you aware, either through sitting in this courtroom or just public information or through your professional engagement, that the government has stated that you do not require an ID or a passport to register for Huduma number? Are you aware of that?
Not sure the question, please.
So, do you know whether the government or if anybody to be registered for Huduma number must you produce an ID or a passport for you to qualify?
Can't answer that.
You're not able to answer.
Yeah.
If I was to tell you, and especially for somebody who authored a SWOT report and recommended what you would say is equivalent to NIIMs, correct? Would you say what your recommendation had is partly how NIIMs came about?
Can't comment because I don't know.
You don't know.
Yeah, mine was actually just aimed at UNICEF comments
Yes.
in terms of reference, not necessarily for UK, or rather for me.
So, when you discuss things that have to do with probabilistic, deduplication, multimodal, where do you get that knowledge from?
From my experience.
From your experience. So you know how deduplication works. And just then pose a question to you. Deduplication compares information to ensure that one is not registered twice. Is that correct?
Correct.
It's also using a multimodal system, because you said multimodal, right? It's able to filter information to be able to determine your characteristics. So, for example, you're Mr. Mosheni, who is a citizen, right? Is that correct?
Based on information given.
No, you told me you have some expertise on this, right? On understanding. That's why you commented on probabilistic, duplication, and multimodal. You have some expertise or understanding what that is, right?
Correct.
So I'm just putting the question to you that the way a multi-model system works to be looking is that it is that correct from your expertise?
Context.
See, let's just take an example. There are two Edward Wambogo Mushemi. Those are your full names. Or it's the other way around. It's Mushemi Wambogo Edward. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Let's just assume there is another Mushemi Wambogo Edward, right?
Yes.
And using you've given and there are two Mushemi Wambogo Edward, and you've used the form at 108, correct? To register, right? I'm just giving you an hypothetical, so it's not that necessary to look at the form. The only information the government has got is Mushemi Wambogo Edward. I hope I'm using it.
Yes.
But two of you are known as Mushemi Wambogo Edward. Mm-hmm. Is the system able to authenticate that this is Mushemi Wambogo Edward X and not Y?
Ideally, it should be able to.
If the only information you provided is the names, and in that order, it should be able to filter and say this is X, this not Y, right? Are you saying you can do that?
If you're putting exactly the same names and if that's the only field that you're filtering, of course it won't.
It won't. But let's add one more field, right? So Mushemi Wambogo of with an address of Kakamega, right? Mm-hmm. And Mushemi Wambogo, who has an address in Mara, and that information is fed. The system is able to desegregate and say this is Mushemi Wambogo of Kakamega, right?
Correct.
You would therefore agree with me that if the system does not have some information, it's not able to determine that particular status, or is not able to desegregate the status. You would agree with me?
Correct.
You would agree with me, for example, if somebody went to register without an ID or passport, the system would not be able to determine whether they are a citizen or not. You would agree?
Can't comment.
You're not able to comment.
Because I don't know which other information they have.
No. Is the system able to say this person is a citizen, even though there is no information fed that the person is a citizen?
I wouldn't know that.
You wouldn't. Okay. You obviously have dealt with children's rights, correct? In fact, I just want to take you to the SWOT report. I think it's page 15. Page 14. Are you at page 14?
Yes, I am.
Okay. just looking at the last paragraph, yeah, you're there.
Mhm.
There's penultimate sentence, the second last. You see it, the one that starts with this assignment?
Mhm.
Can you read that?
This assignment is significant because it establishes the identification process, which is a basic human right for all children in Kenya.
So you, in consideration of the SWOT, you are alive to human rights, and especially of those of you, right?
Yes, I was.
If I was to put it to you that in registering for NIIMs, there may be children who either may not be registered or be given the proper identity. Would you think that is fair or not?
Not sure I understand the question, please.
Is it? Let me ask you then in a different way. Do you think that there is an acceptable percentage of people when a system like NIIMS is implemented who should be excluded from the system? Do you think there is an acceptable percentage?
Can't comment.
Well, I'm asking from a human rights perspective. I'm asking as an opinion. Do you have an opinion whether if a percentage of people are excluded, that would be unfair? Do you have an opinion?
My opinion is that a system is supposed to be inclusive
Yes.
of everybody in the country as a citizen of Kenya.
So you would then agree that to the extent possible, the system should make sure that everybody is included, right?
Correct.
You would also agree that to the extent possible, the system should be able to designate the correct identity of the person, right? Whether they're citizen or non-citizen, correct?
Correct. Based on the information, correct? Yeah.
Yes. You would therefore agree that a system that may contain a percentage that either excludes people from being in the system or does not provide the correct destination for them would be unfair, correct? You're not able to comment.
I can't comment on that.
No. Thank you very much, Mr. Michelle.
Thank you.
Those are my questions.
Thank you.
That's all for the cross-examination.
Yes, it is. Without indulgence, I'll leave in the course of the proceedings. Because I'm traveling, but my colleagues will go report. On Tuesday, I'll be back.
Dr. Nyaundi?
Yes,
I believe you can proceed with the examination.
Yes, yes, and I promise not to be long. Mr. Mishani,
Yes, sir.
I'll have a few questions for you in the examination following the writing examination price that I want. Let's just look at let's start at the beginning. The SWOT, the SWOT analysis. You have it in your hand?
Yes.
This report was authored with the technical support of the minister.
That is correct.
Look at the report. Huh? Incidentally, UNICEF stands for what?
United Nations Children's Education.
United Nations?
Children's Education. What is that?
UNICEF is a UN organ.
Yeah, United Nations International Children's Emergency.
Correct. Yeah? Correct. They supported this report.
They did.
If you look at page 2 of the report, forwarding the report is UN, the UNICEF Kenya Rep, 122. 122 of the report. I'm still on the report. Just after Mr. Jerome.
Yeah. Yes.
It is the UNICEF rep is one of the people who have signed the forward for this report. Huh?
That is correct.
Will you please read the first 2 sentences on that forward?
The Constitution of Kenya clearly states that every citizen is entitled to an identification issued by the state to citizens, Article 12 and 13. Should I continue?
Yes.
The Convention on the Rights of a Child, Article 7, states that all children have a right to an identity, a name, nationality, and a supportive care. Despite Article 53 of the Kenya Constitution explicitly spelling out the rights of the child, only 57% of children from poor communities are registered at birth. How might we then ensure that every citizen in Kenya has access to an identity starting with a child at birth?
So this report, quoting the Convention on the Rights of the Child, says that every child has a right to an identity. Then if you move to the penultimate paragraph, the third paragraph,
Yes.
says the community that the unique identifier.
The unique identifier SWOT, unique ID analysis, is the first of its kind in Kenya that reviews different aspects of citizen identity, registration data, and ICT systems across the government. The research.
No, you can stop that. So the issue of having a unique identifier is one which you say UNICEF supports.
Correct, I do.
Even for children.
Even for children.
In paragraph 15, I think of your, no, paragraph 8 of your affidavit gives a narration of what you consider to be the weaknesses in the Kenyan identity system.
Correct.
Is it your evidence that the NIIMs system offers solutions to these weaknesses?
Yes, it should.
I think a lot of mincemeat has been made of the fact that you look at page, just clarify this, page 2 of your CV, handwritten page 2 of your affidavit. Council asked you whether the Moran order of the Spanish Spear, the award you were given by the president of Kenya, correct?
That's correct.
Move further down there. What appears as part of your achievements and awards? After the Moran order of the Spanish Spear, what other awards have you got?
I was in the top 1% for former PwC 2013. I got
Yes, sir.
Yes.
You are ranked in the top 1% performer in PwC 2013.
That is correct.
And this was an award by the government of Kenya?
No.
Further down, do you read the other one that follows?
Super Relations and Collaborate Award by PwC 2013.
An award by President Kenyatta?
No.
How about the next one?
Ranked in the top 1% performer at IBM in 2007.
2007.
Right.
You've really been a top performer in the corporate world, and this Moran order of the Van Spear is really a reason recognition. You have a track record in the corporate world.
Thank you. Yeah.
Look at your professional involvement. You are a director in KBC.
Yes.
And then you are a director in IBM.
INM Bank.
INM Bank, sorry.
Yes. Yes.
Appointed by the government of Kenya?
No.
How about your position as director in Internet Solutions? Can you see that?
Yes.
You are a director in Internet Solutions.
Yes.
A private entity.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Please move to
My lady,
the second page.
I'd like to raise an objection in regard to question after question that I'm leaving. I don't know whether I hate to do this, but maybe the council cannot cross-examine. Yes.
Am I cross-examined? I thought that the professional standing of the witness was raised very heavily by Mr. Waifa. And I'm not leading the witness, he's reading his CV.
Maybe you would rephrase the question so that they are objective and direct.
Mr. Ushemi.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, my lady. Please look at page 3 of your CV.
Yes.
Could you please, in 1 second, read the code, your community involvement?
The current chair of the PTA Presinga School. I'm also a director of Little Einsteins, which is a support organization that supports children in STEM. I also volunteered for virtual children in Korogo. And I'm a board of governors member, was at Dedan Kimathi Memorial High School.
My lady, just 2 more questions and we'll be done. You have been asked whether you have in any way been involved in the NIIMs project.
Yes.
Have you been involved in its design or implementation?
No, I haven't.
Again, we have had a lot made here about whether NIIMs is centralized or decentralized, and Mr. Waiko did raise that issue with you. What is your position on that? Is NIIMs a centralized or decentralized system?
The biodata information that is collected of individuals is centralized. Information is collected, biographical information is collected in a centralized way. However, all government institutions use that or use their own information in a decentralized manner. So that means that rather than going with, and I'm sure most of you have gone through when you're registering for any kind of civil identification, you go with a pack of like 5 different pictures, because they're trying to collect as much information about you at every stage in each of the individual facets of the, what you call decentralized system. So it's centralized in the sense that it will contain, from what I understand, your biographical information, but it will be used as a cross-reference by the functional systems outside of it.
Let's look at paragraph 9 of your affidavit.
Yes.
You read it out.
To the best of my knowledge, the National Integrated Identity Management System (NIIMS) was modeled from the Estonian identity system, in as far as both systems respectively keep a centralized national master population register in digital form and decentralized functional databases that are linked to the same national master population register.
Thank you. My name is Mando, that will be all in real time, and then for me, that will be all. Mr.
Just one, two, Mr. Bishop.
Yes.
You are at the beginning of the quiz examination, complete cross purposes to the question about what PDTP is.
Yes.
Tell us, what is it?
Thank you. PDTP was an initiative that was initiated by the private sector in support with the government to provide opportunities for employment for students graduating from college in technology. In essence, we were about 12 or 15 private sector companies that got together to create this initiative. What we wanted was somebody or a government institution that could anchor us in order to be able to give these opportunities to these able students. So for instance, PwC provided the ability to sieve the CVs and get the qualified candidates. And then what we did is we partnered with government, because at that time government did not have enough capacity to roll out some of the technology initiatives for the country. So then we placed those students for 6 months to work in certain government initiatives. And then for 6 months, they'll go for soft training in the private sector. So ours was actually what we'd call an advisory board that was constituted in order to make this or to facilitate the process and provide these opportunities for these kids. We started with 50, now they've ramped up to about 400.
Really?
Yes.
So it's likely a privately driven initiative.
Yes, sir.
And cut in whatever initiative.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, there was an attempt to paint you with a government brush. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
Decorated by the president, Capital Markets Authority, and all that.
Yes.
Tell us, these involvements, interactions, recognitions by government, have they influenced in any way your SWOT analysis, your evidence before this dispute?
No, they have not.
Briefly on the Jerome document,
Yes.
the SWOT analysis. Page 2,
Yes.
which is the foreword
Yes.
for the introduction. Paragraph 3, just about halfway down, the sentence that begins, "This report presents." Could you kindly read it to the group? Paragraph 3.
This report
Yes.
presents findings, recommendations, and possible roadmap in harmonizing fragmented citizen identification information in Kenya.
Go on.
The government of Kenya is committed to implementing a single source of truth, as this will enable full inclusivity, enhance personalized public service delivery in all sectors, and crystallize solid frameworks for privacy legislation and data protection.
Thank you. Was this a key objective of this study?
No, yes.
And when you talk about harmonizing fragmented citizen identity information in Kenya, what does that allude to?
That alludes to the fact that we collect a lot of what we call personal information through functional departments within government. And the idea was to try and collect as much information as we can centrally, and then have these functional departments actually use that information. So then therefore you can secure the data that is of every citizen of this country.
Yes. Then when you talk about being committed to implementing the single source of truth, as this will enable full inclusivity, enhance personalized public service, and so on, does this allude to these?
It would.
Thank you. And if you turn to the data capture form that appears at page 108 of this document.
Yes, sir.
One of the questions you asked was about the draft certificate.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes, I do.
When you look at the fourth block about citizenship information,
Yes.
do you see birth certificate being one of the documents?
Yes, I do.
Apart from what else?
Apart from driver's license,
Yes.
KRA PIN, ID number, NHIF number, and SSF number.
Yes.
And on the other side, for non-citizens, is passport number, nationality, country of origin, alien ID number, and of course, the expiry dates of both.
Okay. And for the information to the left, for the citizens,
Yes.
would this be what you're calling fragmented information?
Yes.
In different sources?
Yes. but there are probably maybe 10 or so.
Yes, different sources.
Yes.
Okay, that will be all. Thank you.
Boko,
Yes, ma'am.
we are through with your examination. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And so thank you for your evidence. And that is
Thank you for having me.
witness. So as we ruled yesterday, after today now the hearing will adjourn until second of October. And then when we will not take the evidence, the many respondents, expert witnesses, and witnesses who are the this one expert witness
Yes, Mr. Lloyd Marine,
raised
and then the PS has to be their own mention. The PS interiors official,
yes.
who my lady would like to testify on the second because we thought that
We start with engineer to be. And if I remember correctly, Mr. Bashir and Mr. Webb, they want to fill a notice to program engineer to teach. Or am I wrong? Doesn't it, Mr. Bashir?
Both by the, I think both give.
And also, bearing in mind the directions that we gave when we started the examination, the first one asked is going to teach. It has been asked and asked.
On a different subject, I mean,
Yes,
tomorrow in this petition,
yes,
number this one 63.
yes.
And we had such a grueling week, we just are hoping that it doesn't take over. I don't know whether this people prepared. Are we proceeding with this?
We are ready to proceed, but we, since the petitioners are not here,
Yes.
I'm not sure myself what the status is. We have to wait
We'll
until
have to see. I think it was 10 o'clock as well.
yes.
Thank you.
So we'll adjourn until 2nd October 2019 and for this particular day, consolidated petitions. For other petitions, we proceed to authorize.